we are ready to start. Welcome to the second part of the day. And good morning, those who are just joining us. So we are, the conference is after lunch back. So we are in this already panel 3, but the breakout rooms has keeping the just simple titles A and B. So if you leave this room, you get to main room and you can ask for help to Moderator to assign you to any other room if you prefer. Okay, so we have, everybody has 20 minutes of the, including 1 or 2 questions. And our first presenter is Ellen PEARLMAN. Welcome. And I will shortly introduce you. Okay. Ellen PEARLMAN is new media artist, critic, curator, and writer who has created Noor, a brain opera, the world's first immersive interactive brain opera in a 360-degree theater. Ellen has a PhD from School of Creative Media, Hong Kong City University. And Ellen is on the faculty of Parsons New School University in New York and a senior researcher and assistant professor at RIXC University in Riga, Latvia. Ellen is involved in many great projects, initiated, and also she will talk about some of these projects. Thank you. Welcome.
Yes, hello everyone. I just want to add that currently I'm a research fellow at MIT as well. And I'll be talking about GPT-2, not GPT-3, although I am beginning to work with GPT-3. So for those of you who know what that is, the distinction is large. For those of you who don't know, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to share screen. Do I have permission to do that, Rasa?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on.
Will you show the videos?
Yeah. Let me show everything. I just want to bring up.
If you show the videos, then just check this box. Optimizing.
Yes, of course. So I have a PowerPoint with embedded videos, so I'll go into that. Just let me share screen. Okay. And enter full screen. Okay. Whoops. Slideshow. Here we go. Okay. The title of my presentation is How to Build a Sicko AI. And I want to just go a little bit into my excuse me, personal research areas of focus. I am fascinated with the idea of the post-human. I'm obsessed with issues of surveillance and military control. My specialty is brain research and neuroscience, but I'm moving that out into AI. I'm very aware of the new aesthetic and digital sensor interfaces. In the background is phenomenology and consciousness. And I have worked very extensively with emotionally intelligent AI and BCIs. So one of my underlying themes under everything is who's controlling the controls, who's building the structures, who has access, and what are we going to do about it? And so in all the pieces I make, I work on these themes and the issues that you can see in this diagram. I'm just going to have 1 or 2 little slides about, for those of you who don't know, BCI, a brain-computer interface, is a collaboration between the brain and a device. And the device can be multifarious, and you can move things with the device or not. The first piece I did, I asked the question, is there a place in human consciousness where surveillance cannot go? It was Noor, a brain opera. It did take place in a 360-degree theater like this with no seats. And people were free to walk around and watch what was going on. And there was a performer as well. And the performer, as you can see, she's holding someone's hands. So she interacted with the audience, and those lavender pinkish bubbles are one of her emotional states. I think in this it was interest. And so it formed a feedback loop between her and the audience, and all videos and sound, you can see videos generated, were triggered by her brainwaves. Just very quickly, this is a little look at how that happened. The different ways you can extract data from the brain. You can translate it, you can turn it into visualization, sound. You could turn it into haptics. In a perfect world, you could turn it into scent. That is not gone too far, but this is sort of how it went. And I was able to certainly turn it into light, images, video, motion, animation, all the rest. So that was fun. But for the second piece I did, which premiered last year in Estonia at the Estonian Academy of Music, I did AIBO, and AIBO stands for Artificial Intelligent Brain Wave Opera. So I wanted to bring in a real AI for this. So the areas of inquiry for AIBO were, can an AI be fascist? Can an AI have inherited traumatic memory, which is epigenetic? And I'm working on that currently at MIT much more intensively. But that was the beginning of the question. I needed to build a mutual memory between a live performer and an AI entity, and I had to populate that memory. So in the performance, Ava, who's the main human character, she uses the emotive BCI, and a bodysuit of light reflects her four emotions, which is expanding the first opera. But can an AI produce fake emotions, which is a part of the opera, as we'll see? It was based on the biography of Eva von Braun's 14-year relationship with Adolf Hitler. And so the libretto, which came from Eva, was taken from her biography, and the responses of the AI were taken by the built AI database. Can a GPT-2 character, and I'll talk about GPT-2 in a minute, run from the Google Cloud lifetime? And what about sentiment analysis, which is the analysis of the emotions of the AI lifetime, which I also used. So here, GPT-2 is a algorithmic chatbot on steroids, so to speak. And now it's turned into GPT-3, which is interesting to note, but for this, I'm not going to go into it very much. It had different sizes, and when it first came out, OpenAI, who made GPT-3, were so terrified of what it could do, because it could sort of fake patterns of people's speech. So you could see a Obama speech, and it would sound like it would look like it was written by Obama, but it wasn't. So they didn't release it right away. What I did is I was able to use between GPT-2 medium and large. That's what I used to build my AI over 10 months. Now, I want to talk a tiny bit about what sentiment analysis is. It's pretty simple right now, and it works off natural language processing. It's basically positive, negative, or neutral. It's pretty simple. There's also high positive and high negative, but I didn't go into that. It's represented by digital numbers, and it uses something called magnitude and score. Magnitude is the strength of the emotion, and score indicates how much So if I say, I am very upset, very is strong and upset is negative. So you get my drift. There's also neutral. So in the background, as I worked this out, I had to have GPT-2 run on a virtual machine lifetime in the cloud. I also had to have the semantic analysis take place lifetime in the cloud. The answers had to be returned lifetime. They then had to be routed through visual, video, and DMX lights. I had to have a translation and audio software so the audience could see and hear the answers of the AI. The lag time needs to appear seamless. Eva's libretto was fixed and the dialogue from the AI fired randomly. So I'm explaining this so you'll have, I am going to show video, but I wanted you, I need to lay the ground of what you're going to be seeing. So the character really needed to respond to Eva, but the answers were always random. And so if the AI returned an answer said, you didn't go out today, that answer was analyzed for semantic weight. And if you, it's a sort of neutral answer. So lights would light up and they would be yellow for neutral, green for positive, and red for negative. It was also translated to speech as well. So one of the questions is how to develop visual and sonic memory. What is visual and sonic memory? Because how do you represent that, right? That's a very difficult thing to do. So it's evocative. It's not specifically defined, yet it is recognizable, okay? So that was one of the questions that I played with and am continuing to play with, okay? So now I'm going to show you about 4.5, 5 minutes with a little bit of an explanation of this. There were four overhead screens for videos, one for translations of the libretto, and then a screen on the ground showing.
Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
A screen showing the AI trying to take Ava's last memories and process them and coming up glitchy because an AI can't take memories from a human. Can you all hear this?
Yes.
A doctor saved me from bleeding to death. Rasa said today.
The power of honor is the power of fear.
I told everyone I would marry you.
That was it. Everyone I loved, they came to me.
So what you're having here, you're going to see is live human-computer interaction. This is a performance in which I put a brain-computer headset on Steve, who's the performer. Her body will light up with 4 different colors. The colors reflect her emotions. Red for frustration, green for meditation, purple for interest, and yellow for excitement. At the same time, her emotions will trigger data banks pre-selected of videos and audio. you will see here. And we have an AI that we created from scratch to be kind of sicko or perverted. And we will launch the AI to give responses to her libretto. So
You said, with the mistress, the burden is light, and everything is placed on the level of a gift.
The most important thing in life is sleep and dreams.
And the AI will light up in different colors because we're analyzing the emotions of the AI's response. So we're analyzing the synthetic emotions of a synthetic being. You will also see the AI here try to take the images from the performer's memory, which you will see, and try to make them work, but they're not because the AI doesn't know how to really make emotions yet.
You wanted to be better.
I can hardly think of anything. I am so distressed.
You didn't answer me.
I can't stand that if you like to think I'm a drinker. Of course, I've been wanting to ask you about my clothes. Does it hurt?
You had an operation to remove a polyp on your vocal cords.
And what were you thinking, feeling, and doing?
You say men are warriors. Women make family.
It isn't all that important. You don't have to live forever.
I only care about you.
But it is your job.
What is the fastest and least painful way to commit a suicide?
You are not going to let them kill you if you are silly.
Hold on, I have to bring up the video again. I mean, not the video. There we go. So I'm not going to go into this very deeply, but for you techie geeks out there, this is an overview of what it was I had to do to make this work. If you look in the middle, sort of on the left-hand side, is the lifetime Google Cloud GPT-2 running, and this lifetime natural language processing semantic analysis running. You know, we had text, we had DMX lights, we had visuals, we had audio, you know, we had the whole thing. And so this is a little bit of what it looked like without going into any details here because there's no time to do that. Now, this was really interesting and really happened right before we only did 2 performances of this. And right before the first performance, the GPT-2 Google Cloud got stuck. I was astounded. And so in the pre-rehearsal, we kept trying to run the GPT-2 character, and it only returned one answer. And the only answer it returned, and I'm not making this up, was the word evil. We went, what? And we'd say something to it and it would go evil, evil, evil. Of course, we had to reboot it and everything, but we could not believe that. So I think we built a really good character, because when it got stuck, it could only repeat the word evil again and again. So for my last slide, I just want to say I'm working on a new project called Language is Leaving Me, an opera of the skin. And I'm working with epigenetic memories of cultures of diaspora. I'm working with, here's GPT-3's new models of visual interpretation, including, for those techno geeks, Clip, VQGAN, and DALL-E. What those do is they turn speech into visuals. So if you talk, it has images that pop up. And I'm going to have the soundtrack powered by biometrics and AI as well. So that's where I'm going next. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Ellen. So time now for questions.
Will you be working in collaboration with the cultures of diaspora when you're developing your next project?
Yes, I am a culture of diaspora.
Okay. I'm always curious about
Yes.
programming language and representation of like indigenous people with programming languages and that sort of
Right.
thing.
I'm not an indigenous person. I am certainly a person of a culture of diaspora.
Right. Okay. I just wasn't sure if it was like multiple cultures of diaspora. Or just
You know, what applies to me, Carolyn, which is what I can talk about, is probably pretty true for most cultures of diaspora, epigenetic trauma. You know, I have my own take on it and my
Right.
own twist, but you know, I'm human and it's a human issue. So I'm not speaking for all cultures of diaspora. I'm only speaking for me, but I think people are going to pick up on a lot of similarities.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
what I think. You know, that's all. I can only speak for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Oh,
I
Paula, yeah.
because you started the presentation mentioning the question, can the program capture past trauma? Is there an answer to that?
I'm working on that answer right now. And let's put it this way. That which can be quantified can be captured. That which cannot be named and tagged cannot be captured. But it can be simulated.
Are you see? Yeah, exactly. That's you thinking of strategies to simulate it, so to help achieving that kind of reaction and data.
I think in order to do that, I have to go to the roots of how it's represented, how it's put together, and who makes the decisions on that. And then I can go into the simulations and discuss them. So right now I'm working with a team of about 4 or 5 software developers, and we're going to the actual roots of the databases that are used to put together the images that represent for all of humanity their memory. And this is technology that only dropped in May 2021. It was in development, but this is brand new tech and it's already becoming codified. So it's very troubling. And I just want to add that 2 days ago or 3 days ago, the UN released a statement, a United Nations backed statement about the quantification and implications and terrifying implications of the standardization of AI. And, you know, this is running in parallel with that in a way, even though they don't know about me and I didn't know about them, the issues are clear to us, you know? So the answer is that's why it's going to take a long development, because I have to get to the roots of it. And I work with developers, you know, I can't do it. It's beyond my pay grade, so to speak, but I work with them.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Sandra? And
Oh, sorry, you are not hearing me. Sorry. I was telling that I find this project really interesting, and what I would like to ask, or as if you can explain a little bit more, is how do you relate emotions that look something like individual, that is something like the performer is feeling something and showing that she is feeling, that what she is feeling, and how you relate these personal emotions with this kind of cultural memory that the AI is trying to develop.
Yeah, Sandra, I'll try to unpack that quickly. Thank you. The human emotions can't be faked with a brain-computer interface. You cannot fake them. You can modulate them by learning to move and, you know, and I trained the performer for 5 months, but you can't fake it. So that's the first thing. It's just not possible. You can fake acting, you can't fake brainwaves, all right? The second thing is the question between human emotion and AI emotion is the hot topic now in AI research. And I presented a lot of conferences, of course, like this, but also I presented IEEE, ACM, I presented computer science and engineering conferences. So I'm seeing what computer scientists and engineers and AI developers are representing as human emotion and how they're representing it. And it's very interesting to ask an engineer who writes the algorithms to represent an emotion and how they do it. You know, you can imagine you've got, everyone here today on this is like, we're all sensitive and we know emotions. And these engineers and computer scientists are mostly men, and they're working with mathematics for the most part and a few human studies. So you can see the disconnect. So the disconnect is in the field and the industry. It's not so much in what I do. I'm trying to highlight that, but it's how and you can't blame them because who here is an engineer or computer scientist on this panel? I mean, maybe there's one if we're lucky. So, you know, there's the dialogue between the two is very important. And I think that doesn't answer you very specifically, but gives you an overview of what the whole thing is up against. And that's the best I can do. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Ellen, for presentation. And now we move to the next presentation. Thank you also for great questions. Okay, our next presentation is by Jonah Brucker-Cohen. He's an artist and associate professor in the Department of Journalism and Media Studies at Lehman College, CUNY in the Bronx. He has received his PhD from Trinity College, Dublin. And currently, his work focuses on deconstructing networks. Yeah, so he has been widely also exhibited and is writing for Wired and Neural and many more magazines. Okay, Jonah.
There you go. Can you guys see the slides? I love this piece. So
yes, we can.
Hi everybody.
We can see.
Awesome.
Yeah, we can see. Just in a case, we found that you can actually take away these menu bars if you click on these 3 dots on the menu bar below. It says hide floating something. Try.
Hide self view.
No, hide floating something like number 3 or 4.
Oh, I see.
But if not,
hide floating meeting controls. There you go.
Yes. Yes.
Cool. Okay. I somehow just lost
yeah,
myself.
No, it's no blocks anymore. It looks good. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. thanks everybody. Thanks for being here. It's good to be back. I think the last time I was at this conference was 2017, so it's nice to be back. So my name is Jonah Booker-Cohen. I'm an associate professor at Lehman College, which is one of the CUNYs in New York City, in the Bronx. This is a project that I really like called PEARLMAN by Marek Tomasic. He does a lot of kind of wearable projects, and this was an entire keyboard built, clothing built out of keyboards. But today I'm here to talk a little bit about some of my work related to the human-machine relationship. And to do that, I'm going to kind of take you through a little bit of history of some of my work and then some more kind of recent projects that fit this theme. And I have some videos and stuff embedded, so I'll go through those. So to start off, critical context, right? So to me, what's really interesting is how we misuse computers or how we misuse things like cell phones. So this is a text message system or text message from an iPhone that came through a dad to his son. The first message says, "I'm in a meeting." The second message says, "I'm in a meeting." It keeps going, "I'm in a meeting, I'm in a meeting." And we see this kind of stuff happening a lot where you're getting calls from people who don't think they're actually calling you. You're getting messages from people that are saying the same message. Finally, after all these messages, son writes back and says, "Are you in a meeting?" And the dad writes back, "No." Why? So to me, it's a funny example of how we misuse technology. And this is something that's kind of built into technology that we have every day. And here's a quote from Ellen Rose, who wrote a book called User Error, Resisting Computer Culture Between the Lines back in 2003. So it's a pretty old book, but it's interesting. She says that features such as auto summarize, which rob the user of motive power, to word processors that automatically make typed World Wide Web addresses hot, to programs that force the user to confirm the deletion of a file up to 3 times. We've done that before by clicking the OK button, and some of them don't even have anything but an OK button. So these interfaces are not designed so much to make computing easier, but rather to make it foolproof and dumbed down for people that don't understand it. And so the human presence in a way is reduced to a twitching finger, spastic body, oversaturated informational pump that makes choices in programmed limits. So I think that's really interesting to see that that's what's happening to us. Here's an ad I saw on the subway that I really like. Me on Instagram cooking and plating beautiful food, and then me on Twitter sitting in a bed naked eating 8-piece box of chicken. So it shows that people associate these different social medias with different types of way they represent themselves, and how they actually interact is pretty key. So today I'm going to talk about some projects of mine that look at themes like digital impatience. So what happens when you impose imperfect human limits on technology? Does that actually get you any further? Repositioning mobile media. So what happens when you deconstruct a relationship that app culture forges, such as things that we retain, memories, other types of human knowledge. When we disrupt location services, so we add social data to them, what will that actually do to those services? Will they make it more interesting? Will they make it less usable? And then finally, I'll talk about 4 projects of mine that look at human frailty and how that can inform interface design. All the things that we do wrong with technology, how we could actually integrate that into technology to make it a little bit more like us, a little bit less like it should be. So I want to start off with an earlier project of mine as context. 2 early projects. One is called Loading Please Wait. It's just 2K. It just loads forever. It makes you wait on this memory. This is something that we're all frustrated with daily, and we see it happening all the time. So that's live on the web too at some point, but it examines the impatience of internet users, how advances of technology can often promote negative human reactions, right? We see that a lot. And also creates a feedback loop of online patience and impatience. So we're actually kind of sitting there waiting for this thing to happen. It's never going to happen. So what do we do? Yeah. So then another kind of older project that fits in this context was one of mine called Crank the Web that I built that looks at kind of what happens when you add like a physical component. So it's a browser where you have to crank the actual crank to download internet, to download the web and the website. And this was an installation back in 2010 at Otis College in California. So it materializes transparent processes such as bandwidth. It emphasizes physical interaction in increasing automated world and resuscitates really old technology like the crank to inform us about how we use technology today. So I'm also really interested in that, like how we can like take what's old, bring it into kind of what's new and see what we can actually do with it. This is what it sounded like, pretty noisy. You don't want to do that every day. You don't want to do that every day. So breaking through interface stupidity, another problem that we have with human computer connection is that this was, Microsoft made you hit these 3 buttons every time you wanted to get somewhere on a Windows machine back in the day. I don't know if they do it as much anymore, but I think that's a funny way of like siphoning down like the entire interface. And Donald Norman in '91 wrote a book called The Invisible Computer, and he says once an infrastructure gets established, it's really difficult to change. So they're deeply embedded into the culture of society, so ingrained in the way people learn to live, work, play, that change can take place very slowly, sometimes even taking decades. And that's true when we see how, even the interface for the typical computer has not changed in so long. And we're trying to get there with things like iPhones and iPads, but it's still a similar kind of icon app type environment. And another kind of older project that fits into this theme is looking at how social software has come. And actually, it's a project that I built way before social software back in 2003. But I actually revived it finally last year. So you can actually try it out if you go to bumplist.net and see what but it's actually an email community for the determined. So it's an email list that only supports 6 people. And when you join it, you bump somebody else off. So you have to be part of it. You have to keep joining it. So that's also an experiment in frustration. And it's also about how we use technology and why we actually are kind of lured to coming back to these technologies. Even like social media, there's some kind of habit that we have to click the like button, otherwise our day is not complete or something. So it's about kind of what happens when Blumplist was about how when you place a rule on accepted forms of discourse, what does that do to the system? Does it change it? Does it affect it? And it also examines how the constraints influence a community. So we only had 6 people on this list. What could they actually talk about in the time before they got bumped? How could they actually maintain those connections? And it forces exclusivity and competition and change this modes of communication. So I wanted to kind of show you that as an example of some historical stuff of mine. Now we'll get into the more recent stuff. So what happens when you take location services, right, and add a social component to them? Something that we don't really see. Like when you go on a map now, you see like restaurants, you see like community centers, schools, but you don't really see what's happening in the neighborhoods around those places. You don't actually see like, oh, this has like bad drinking water in this neighborhood, or like there's crime. So this is a project called Killer Route, and it's a GPS that integrates crime data into the GPS. So it forces you to travel through the most dangerous parts of the city to get to your location, expecting you to see places that you might not have seen otherwise. And so it converges this data with the GPS. It creates an active data layer on top of the navigation architecture. Something like GPS, we don't necessarily think of as something that's socially inclined, but kind of really interesting to see what would happen there. And imagines a future of data integration into our daily lives. So here's a video that I made. It's kind of silly. You'll see, you might recognize the soundtrack to it. I'll turn it on.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? When you were 8 and you had bad traits, you go to school and learn the golden rule. So why are you acting like a bloody fool? If you get hot, then you must get cool. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do?
So that was an open source software project. There's a lot of kind of crazy to make, but it was kind of interesting. But also along the same lines, I'm looking at AI a little bit, also machine learning. How could you integrate something like social justice into this? This is something that's very dry typically, and it's not really something that you think of when you think of AI. But I was looking at Google reCAPTCHA software, which is a free software that Google makes to find, to stop bots from invading your server. And so last year I built a project called To Protect and Server, and it's basically a you guys have seen this. It's an AI system that detects, allows you to go into a system, but you actually have to click on squares of police brutality. And with all the stuff that was happening in the US last year with the George Floyd murder and other things like that, I thought it was pretty timely. And so when you click on the right squares, you get sent to a screen of a video game. That's, the game is it's called Police VR Enforcer, and it's a training academy for police officers to learn how to think like a police officer. So this project really examines, kind of re-examines Google's reCAPTCHA software, how it could train the public to maybe think more like a police officer, or to think like how a police officer could think this way. It also connects actual images with anime, video game depictions of violence, also to show biases that are there in popular culture. So it's not only pictures that we see from the news. And it explores the relationship between police violence and virtual training of police officers through game interfaces. And that is actually happening. Some police are being trained through these interfaces. It's kind of scary, but it's actually true. Here's a little video of this too. It's about a minute. And this was a collaboration with Mark Ramos.
Currently following the stolen SUV, heading downtown South Street.
So the same way that reCAPTCHA is supposed to stop us from malicious actors online, this is supposed to look at how that could actually connect to police. Also on the same area protest, and something just that kind of has been coming up, even happened yesterday here in the US, which is crazy, is mass shootings, right? They're kind of all over the place. And the US politicians, at least, maybe also in other countries, say that video games are tied to mass shooters. The reason why there are so many in this country is that because people are shooting, people are playing these games. And so I built this project in 2019 called Weapon of Protest, and it's a hacked Nintendo controller that when you trigger the trigger, it sends an email of protest to the NR, the National Rifle Association in the US, kind of protesting gun ownership and gun rights. So it looks at how you could actually turn one of these objects into a networked object that acts as a protest object against what's going on, in directly correlating to this claim that video games and mass shootings are connected, which I think has been kind of debunked in a lot of ways. Here's a quick video for this one too. Sorry about the Trump clip.
The glorification of violence in our society. This includes the gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace. It is too easy today for troubled youth to surround themselves with
here, and today I want to talk about a subject that comes up often in American politics, and that's the blaming of the video game industry for violent acts and mass shootings. If you've been following the news this week, then you might know there's 2 more mass shootings in the United States. 20 dead in El Paso, Texas, and 9 dead in Dayton, Ohio. And if you go back a few more days to July 28th, 3 more people were killed in California.
6 minutes.
And of course, this is only counting deaths and not the massive amounts of life-changing injuries and trauma for those that survive. The United States has a mass shootings problem that's only escalated to an insane level over the past 20 years. There's no denying that, no matter what your political allegiances are. And as a country, we've been pretty stagnant about it when it comes to finding a solution. Gun ownership, the right to bear arms, is something that's deeply ingrained in American culture. So much so that even suggesting a ban on firearms has become a political landmine. So instead, our politicians try to push tighter gun control or occasionally turn to blaming loosely correlated ideas like that violent video games are the reason we have mass gun violence in this country. And with the most recent wave of mass shootings, I hate even
kind of agree with him there.
Phrase. It sounds so crazy that we've just gotten used to it. But with the recent one, our House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy spoke about how video games are dehumanizing individuals. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick just said in response to the shootings, we've always had guns, always had evil, but I see a video game industry that teaches young people to kill. And then just today, President Trump said we must stop the glorification of violence.
So I'll stop.
65 million Americans enjoy video games, and billions of people play video games worldwide. Yet other societies where video games are played as avidly do not contend with the tragic levels of violence that
So this could be
occur
a
in the US.
US-centric problem, which I think it definitely is, but it's just something interesting to look at as far as how to make a networked object that responds to that. I'll go quick because I only have a few minutes, but I'm looking at the last few projects like a human error and cloud storage. The first one is I think we're losing our memory to cloud storage. We store a lot of stuff in the cloud. We store a lot of stuff on our phones that we don't necessarily remember. So David Brooks in 2007 wrote this article called The Outsourced Brain, when he says, I thought that the magic of the information age was that it allowed us to know more, but then I realized the magic of information age was that it allows us to know less. It provides us with external cognitive servants to look on memory systems, collaborative filters, and consume preference algorithms, so we can burden these servants and liberate ourselves. I think that's really interesting. It's something that we're actually not noticing as much, but we're starting to. So this is a conversation that I really like about someone who lost their contacts. The message comes in, I'm here for you. Thanks, I'm going through a lot. It's a tough time, so it means a lot. Or sorry, I lost all my contacts. Who is this? And then he writes back, this is your Uber driver. So I think we're seeing like this change here where people are not noticing. People are noticing that they can't remember things as much anymore, but it's kind of picking up on that. She said, oh. So in 2018, I built this project called Contact Rot that was an iPhone address book that decays your contacts over time. So if you don't call them enough, they start deleting from your address book and the numbers start going away. And so your memory starts getting kind of more important to remember things. And it shows how digital devices are replacing our memory from this cloud storage. Numbers and names deteriorate and fade away if they're not contacted, and contacts only remain if they stay relevant in your life. Therefore, you have to keep calling them for the contacts to stay in your address book. I don't think I have time to show the video, so I'm gonna keep moving. The last few projects look at human error. I've done like 4 projects that fit this kind of theme. This was the first one, 2020, called Human Error Letter Dial. So it's actually an iPhone app that's like a standard phone dialer, but it gets rid of the numbers and it only has the letters associated with the numbers. So it forces you to remember where the numbers are placed on the phone in order to call. So you actually press the letter aspects of there. So it highlights these errors that we incur on digital devices. It emphasizes them to create sort of human frailty comes out because you can't actually remember them. And it also instigates our continued reliance on software that compensates for our own innate abilities, right? Software is now becoming more able to do things that we thought only we could do. And so it's a kind of a serious error. It's under a minute, so I'll show it fast. So you have to dial with your letters. Let's see if you can actually remember that number. And then typically the number is not right. Okay. So the second in the series is called DIM, and it's basically an Apple macOS software that dims your display to about 50% every 5 minutes. So it kind of continues along that lines, and highlights the errors that we both experience and tolerate that become an everyday part of our computing life. So we notice that these things are happening. It also examines the things we do wrong with technology, such as leave our screens dim. And then the third one also looks at human error. It's a paper jam project. So it's a printer that I modified that continually causes a paper jam over time. So the more you use it, you'll kind of keep jamming it. And it's basically trying to bring light bring to light the recycling levels, at least in our country. In my country, they're only about 21.4%, and there's enough office paper that's discarded to build a wall between Seattle and New York, about a 12-foot wall annually, which is kind of scary. And it highlights the environmental impact of about 10,000 sheets of office paper that are wasted. Sorry about that. Yeah, so keep going. Then the last one is called Password, and it's another on the human error series. It's a web form that will continually change your chosen password back to the word password, which is something that's also a human error that we typically do. So it examines the fact that 72% people reuse passwords for their personal accounts, which is not good. And it kind of shows this common online error that's easily avoidable, but continually replicated. So just to clean up, to finish up, how to subvert the human machine context. This is a keyboard waffle. I kind of like it as a context of like, this is what you could actually do with your keyboard after you're done with it. As a way of subverting human machine context, the first thing is to supplant interactive context. So deconstruct the network and human relationship interfaces to provoke new relationships. Challenge how UI is worked, is used, is affected. Regain your personal abilities from digital tools. Try to get your memory back. Try to get other things back. Your ability to write. I feel like I can't write anymore because I type too much. That would be a good tool to build. Build a critical. When you're building connected devices, make sure they have a critical component. Create socially relevant connected devices. Things that actually make an impact on things, places. Sean is going to talk next. Does that really, really well. So I'm excited to hear his talk. Emphasize human computer frailty, so critically expose misuse of hardware, software, and network engagement. These are kind of the things that we do a lot, but they're not really emphasized as much when people are designing for them. So yeah, there's another protest picture, but thanks a lot, and we can do questions after.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so some questions. One question, I think, will be.
Sure.
Time for one question.
Yeah. Yeah. Open for question.
Sean? Mute. Unmute.
How about now?
Yeah.
All right, great. Yeah, I was really interested in your memory analogy, where you would have the cloud storage start to forget things. And I wonder, you know, I spent a lot of time studying memory, and it turns out human memory is really terrible. And it raises the question in my mind why it's so bad. And I wonder if there's actually a purpose for it. And if the cloud will have to start forgetting things as well in order to gain other functions. So I was interested in your reflections on that.
Oh yeah, definitely good points. I mean, I think, well, I mean, if we made the cloud more human, it would fail more often and people would not be happy. So that's not good. But ultimately, you know, I think what's happening is, I mean, I ask my students this every semester. I was like, if I took your iPhone address book and just deleted all those names, like how many of those numbers you remember? People are like, one, my mom, or like one, my cousin or something, you know. So I don't know if, you know, doing that is I mean, the fact that we do rely on this stuff so much is a good thing or a bad thing. It's, I think ultimately I want my memory back. I'm like trying to figure out ways to get it back. But it's not the easiest. And maybe some software could even help us with that. Yeah. But yeah, we have to build them more human-like, probably. The Citizen app, Ellen says, what is the Citizen app? Curious.
Okay. Thank you. I also want my memory back. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Jonah,
Totally.
yeah, download it. And you'll understand. Okay.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Awesome.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Jonah. So
thank you guys.
Okay. So move to next one. Okay, Sean, it's your turn now. I will shortly introduce you. Sean Montgomery is a technologist, educator, and new media artist working at the intersection of art, science, and technology. And his lab recently has launched embodied. Yeah, you will explain it. A wearable open source biometric sensor. Sounds great. Okay, so Sean, please.
Okay. Let's see. Can you hear me?
Very well.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, then let me start my talk and start my screen share. How's this looking to everybody? Can you see my screen?
Good.
Great. All right. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be back at RIXC at the Open Fields Conference, and excited to get y'all's reactions. I actually am going to record my biometric signals while I give this talk, and then I'm going to post them later on social media. So if you think of a good question that can get a reaction out of me, then you'll be able to view it in multiple dimensions. Today I want to talk about biometric sensing signals from the body, and kind of wax a little philosophical and speculative about what the future looks like for biometric sensing and how we may use that to augment our cognition, and then how we might make that more accessible to more people and really democratize that technology so it's serving everyone. A little bit about my background. I got my PhD in neuroscience in 2009, studying memory and how oscillations in the brain serve encoding and retrieval functions. And since doing my PhD, I kind of shifted gears out of academic science into industry, where I've tried to kind of bridge academic and industry type research a bit. And I'm going to talk about some of that today. So my current venture is I run a technology consulting company, and we help people sense signals from the body, among other things. I also have taught over the years at a number of places, so I try to keep one foot grounded in education and gaining that sort of perspective and inspiration from the students. And then I also work as a new media artist. And a lot of my new media art is actually biofeedback art, sensing signals from the body and doing stuff with it. So these are some examples of my work in the past. There's one called Vital Threads Biofeedback Apparel that sensed electrodermal activity and lit up a wristband, which I'm actually wearing today. So when it's blue, I'm calm. And then if I smack myself, it lights up red because I got angry about that. A shirt that flashes with my heartbeat, and a hat that lights up with my brain activity. And then I've also created an installation that when you touch it, picks up your heartbeat and lights up the room, and kind of and uploads things to the internet, and kind of asks the question where the human body is ending and where the internet begins. And then there's also a piece called Hive Mind, which picked up brainwaves from two performers and then flashed a screen behind them that the other performer looked at, and then trained their EEG oscillations, and so created this kind of direct brain-to-brain through light communication, which actually debuted at the RIXC Art Science Festival a few years back. So that's kind of some of my background. And what I really want to talk about today is this kind of more speculative, futuristic idea of augmented cognition, and how that's already in the present to an extent. So I think I wrote an article with some folks in Patty May's lab at MIT this last year on this topic, and you can check that out if you want some more detail. But basically, in the future, it's very likely that signals from the body combined with machine learning are going to be changing aspects of our reality. They already do, but it's going to increase probably at an accelerating pace. And so I'm interested in what that means. And so just to sort of contrast that with what is currently possible, last year, there was a paper that came out that used machine learning to predict psychosis. Psychosis is devastating. Going and having a psychotic break is devastating for the person. It disrupts their lives. It disrupts the lives of their friends and family around them. So to be able to predict it and potentially intervene would make a really big difference in a lot of people's lives. And it's an interesting idea to think about predicting and intervening into psychosis. We're now raising the specter. Who is in control? Who's creating that algorithm? Who's flipping the switch? What is that intervention? Is it driven by a drug company, for example? What are their motivations? And I think also what's possible right now and what's going to become more and more prevalent is the idea of reality filtering. So if you, for example, it's really easy to use computer vision to detect a donut these days. So if you're trying to be more healthy, maybe you want to block donuts from your augmented reality or your virtual reality view so that you can be healthier. And so I think this is a powerful way to kind of cognitively intervene into the stimuli that are going to trigger you. It would also be interesting if Dunkin' Donuts had control over this algorithm, and if they were picking up your biometrics and identifying when you were craving a donut, and then maybe a Dunkin' Donuts ad would pop up. So there's kind of this duality, and I'm really interested in what separates these kind of utopian versus dystopian futures. And I don't think there's any one thing. I think there's a lot of little things. But one thing I've been thinking about is really bringing more voices into the conversation about what biometrics mean, how they should be used, and including perspectives from researchers to artists, first world, third world, disadvantaged, advantaged, and really bringing everyone together and making sure that these technologies are representing everyone's voices, and hopefully serving everyone to the greatest degree possible. And so, kind of dovetailing that with my life in technology, I've been waiting for over a decade for somebody to make a biometric device that can pick up research-grade biometric signals at an affordable price and really deliver the data in a form and in of an integrity that allows you to go deeper into it and not stay at kind of a superficial consumer level. And what I realized over the years is that there was kind of this research grade bucket, which tended to be expensive and had good signals, sometimes wearable, sometimes less wearable. And then there's a consumer grade bucket, which tended to have impoverished signals. You tended to need to give your data over to the largest corporations in the history of the world, and a number of other drawbacks. And so at some point it hit me, maybe the reason it doesn't exist is because my lab needed to make it. And so that's how the idea of Emodibit was born, out of the notion that it's a weird set of skills and motivations that goes about building this kind of cheaper, super high quality wearable sensor to pick up all these signals that nobody really knows what to do with entirely yet. But I was really motivated to democratize biometric sensing because I wanted something that was super easy to get people in the door. I want it to be wearable, easy to use, open source, have high quality, high value data, and give the data to the user. Let them own it completely and let them send it places if they want. And also make it affordable. A fraction of the cost of many of the research grade devices on the market, so that researchers and artists and DIYers and personal health enthusiasts and educators and students, everybody could be a part of that conversation about what these signals mean and what they should be used for, what they should control about the world. And so key to that was making it easy to use. So I'm gonna fire up, I've actually got an Embodied on my finger right now. We tried to make it really easy to put any number of places, and I'll show you examples of wearing it on the forehead. We had a collaborator in Canada make a 3D printed case so they could put it on snowboarders on their calf, and a variety of other things. But right now this is measuring from my finger, and this is my data coming live over the signal. So you can see if I move around, the IMU data is going to be moving around over here. You can see my my heartbeats coming through. This is my electrodermal activity. So if I smack myself, you'll see a little bit of a delay. And then let me see. I may be, I was up late trying on Skype calls with China last night. So it's possible my biometrics are a little wackadoo. Oh, there we go. And then there's also body temperature sensor, and all this data is streaming live, and also being recorded to an SD card on the device itself for high integrity and really high ownership. I took some notes in Jonah's talk. I'll take a note right now. I'll just say oscilloscope, shorthand. And so now that note is being logged directly onto the SD card as well. And we're working on making it easy to send the data elsewhere. I'll show you an example of sending that data over OSC, which is a common stream that artists use to send data around. But we're also working on opening up other channels so that whatever channel makes sense to you, we can make it work, is kind of our hope. So that's just a little bit about what a Modabit looks like. And then this is an example of a Modabit being used I guess it was last summer. Artahack, in the middle of a pandemic, pulled together people from hackers from around the world to dial into a dance studio in New York, where a dancer had the Modabit, there were actually two dancers, this is one of them, on his body. And then the hackers would gather that data live and manipulate it, and use it to manipulate this virtual environment that you see here. And so his signals were triggering things like sounds and the colors of words and things like that. And then that culminated in in this.
There's no sound.
Thank you. How do I do that again? Share sound?
Sure.
Yes, share sound.
Good.
By Razvan Stoya draws on language to describe the perceptual experience of otherness.
I'm going to skip ahead so you can see the next performer.
The next presentation, performed by Hussein Simko, examines an individual's journey of finding mental strength and resilience in the face of adversity and chaos.
So this was just a very short clip. If you go to this Vimeo link here, you get a full 16-minute compilation of the performances that were broadcast live on this awesome platform called Electron. And so we've been working with artists and educators and researchers and quantified selfers, and have been really fortunate that people have, it's really resonated with a number of people to have this access to high quality data and be able to start doing things with it. And you know, we're just starting with this one step in a staircase and hoping to expand this into a larger biometric ecosystem that allows people to share code and data and lots of other things as well. And you can see we've worked with all kinds of folks, from industry to academia, research, education. And the hope is that through this, people will start asking more questions and maybe ask better questions, bring new contexts and perspectives, and consider the future, consider the ethics of all of this at a younger age, and really kind of immerse ourselves in these concepts. And we've been really fortunate. This last year, we launched on Kickstarter and were successfully funded. And OpenBCI is now in pre-order at openbci.com, where we're going to start shipping. We're aiming to start shipping in February. So thank you very much. And as I mentioned, I'm recording my biometric data right now, and I'm going to post it on social media from this talk. So if anybody wants to look at my reaction, listen to my reaction, and then view it in biometric signals, that will also be possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Okay, so no time for the 1 or 2 questions, please.
I have a question, Sean. Because you actually work with a very sensitive field, which is biometric, capturing the data and interpreting data, which as Ellen and Jonas before you mentioned that it's very difficult when it comes to ethics, but also all the BS that are involved in the algorithms to translate the data. And when you show the project of anticipating when somebody has the mental breakdown, somehow I remember a bit Oscar Wilde, like there is no such a thing as bad publicity, and what in relation to what Jonas mentioned, that once a technology, no matter how bad it is installed in the fiber of society, it stays there for decades and centuries. So the attitude is like, okay, this is very dangerous, because if you can detect when somebody is having a breakdown. Actually, years ago, I made a a theater piece about it, but in a very ironic context that people can try to induce us to have breakdowns to transform us in weapons. Like, I mean, it was a joke about the CIA capturing people when it is on the border of becoming suicidal, to use them as a weapons. But that's the thing, like, instead of capturing, isn't better to research technology that can prevent?
Well, so, you know, I think that's an important part of the conversation as well. What I've kind of come to over time is that this is not going to be stopped. And the reason isn't because, you know, of some big bad company or whatever, but the reason is that we're going to want it, because there's going to be so much possibility that comes from it, just the same as stopping the written word or stopping the hammer. You know, I think that it's a tool and it's going to come. And I think one of the drivers is going to be, if you're able to have your information filters be highly tuned and you're able to buy stocks better than the next guy, you're going to do it, right? If you can be the smartest person in the room on the stockroom floor, you're going to wear these biometrics, and I think that's going to be true across disciplines and across industries and to a large extent. So that's, you know, when I started thinking about that, that's when I started thinking about how more than whether than if, and started thinking about how to move the needle into, you know, slightly to the utopic direction. I think it's going to be messy, but I think with some principles, you know, open source being one of them, I think that will be helpful. Having more voices, I think, you know, that's how I'm thinking about it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, one question was great. So we thank you, Sean, again, and we move to the next presentation. Today, Vincenzo Sanson.
Hi to everyone.
Hi, let me shortly introduce you. So Vincenzo is holding master's degree in digital performance from Sapienza University of Rome, and PhD in study called Culturali Europe. I'm sorry.
Cultural studies, European cultural studies.
Okay, University of Palermo. Okay, thank you. And the focus of your research concerns the areas of performing arts, new media, animation, augmented reality technologies, software, culture, visual culture. He's also an actor and digital set designer, so an adjunct professor at the University of Milan and Brera Academy of Fine Arts. Okay, so welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your introduction. I'm very happy to attend another time RIXC conference. It's a very pleasure for me. So I share the screen, optimize for, okay. Okay. So my speech is entitled "Theater and Artificial Intelligence: From Robots to Algorithms that Perform on the Stage." And the question is, what is happening? The use of artificial intelligence inside the performing arts field is at the beginning. We can find a few examples of AI used in live performances, but important questions are beginning to emerge. How could AI help the performer? Could AI replace the performer? And how does AI affect spectators? And how do they relate to a performance thanks to AI? At this moment, we can identify 4 ways in which AI is applied to performing arts. One is artificially intelligent robots, or that spectators supposed to be intelligent robots that can substitute the actors. 2, a synthetic voice guides the spectators. 3, choreography assisted by AI, and 4, AI to write a play. So let's start with robots, but starting from a consideration that Christian Paul made yesterday, that robotics does not necessarily coincide with AI, that robots do not necessarily have to be intelligent to perform tasks. The case we will see is peculiar because more than a real artificial intelligence, we can recognize a perception of intelligence. In 2019, Rimini Protocol company presented this performance called Uncanny Valley. It's a performance in which the actor is a robot with the human features so delineated as to cause a sense of uneasiness, the so-called Uncanny Valley effect as traced in 1970 by Masahiro Mori. The idea to use some form of automaton in theater is not new. The historic avant-garde, and in particular the futurism, suggested to substitute the actor with the automatons. Another man of that period, Edward Gordon Craig, tried to transform the stage through his revolutionary ideas, such as the 1,000 scenes in one scene, with a particular system you can see in this slide that he called screens, a machine that could move and perform independently and dance with the light. So this stage machinery, in accord to Craig ideas, should change 2,000 times in one scene. But the problem that Craig traced is that the actor becomes useless in this new stage scenery. So he has to be replaced by a marionette, or as he calls it, the Uber marionette. These are some passages from On the Art of the Theater of 1911. The most important thing is that Craig affirms is that acting for Craig is not an art, and it is not an art because acting is related to accident, and art is against accident. So what he wants is to cancel everything that is linked to accident, and one of these elements is the actor, the body of man and woman, the expression of his face, the sounds of his voice, all are at the mercy of the winds of his emotions. And the solution for Craig is to replace it with this inanimate figure, the Uber marionette. So the question at this moment is this: did the automaton of Uncanny Valley realize this paradigm? Before answering, we can observe this after a little analysis of this performance. The performance, in particular in Uncanny Valley, Stefan Kaegi, that is the member of Rimini Protocol, works with a writer and playwright, Thomas Mell, that is is represented in these automatons. Mell allowed an animatronic double of himself to be made. This humanoid takes the author's place and makes questions. What does it mean for the original when the copy takes over? Does the original get to know himself better through his electronic double? And do the copy and this original compete, or do they help each other? So I would like to show a little, some minutes of this performance that you can watch entirely on Vimeo.
If you've come to see an actor, you're in the wrong place. But if you've come to see the authentic, you're also in the wrong place. Because I don't want to expose myself anymore, not like that, not as the real thing, the real person, because, look, the stage enlarges everything to an unbearable degree. Gestures, vanities, insecurities, and if my facial features slip like this, then this facial slip is instantly recorded by 2 or 3 cameras and 100 brains, and is spread as a virtual meme all over the world. Every hand movement, like this or this, becomes more important than the written word. And on the other hand, writing is quite a solitary thing, quite autistic, and you sit all alone at your desk and, well, sometimes contact with the audience as an idea might be very nice. But here at the front, it's always kind of lonely. And when the audience is no longer silent at the end, when a discussion takes place with that same audience, a discussion with all of you sitting here, it immediately messes up most of my work, which I've worked on in meticulous calibrations of each word. Do you have a question? Yes? Yes? No, I don't even want to hear it. The same questions come back again and again, and after 3 or 4 readings and interviews, well, you have the same answers ready, and actually they're not correct anymore.
I show some minutes of this performance. As you can see, the similarity to human beings of this automaton that reproduce male appearance makes the acceptance of machines easier. However, if the machine is too similar to a human, we begin to feel mistrust. What is human? What is machine? Are the questions. And this is what Masahiro called Uncanny Valley. In this performance, Mel's text crosses the author biography with Alan Turing's life, and then leads to a sort of explanation in which, also thanks to the use of video projections, the creation of the android is told and commented on. Mels explain how wonderful it could be to be replaced by a robot that face our life in this difficult world. In this case, the need to embody a public figure. The essence of the narrator is sometimes ambiguous. Sometimes he speaks to use about himself with the awareness of being a robot. Sometimes instead is just the container of Thomas' voice, until he himself appears on video, another filter, yet another reproduction of the real self, and shows us the process of metaphorical death to which he underwent to create his robot version. So we can see all this process of construction of these automatons during the performance. But the use of robot in theater is not new. But in other occasions, we realized that we were observing a robot performing on a stage and always with a real actor. There are some examples I put in these slides. For example, Marceli Antunes Roca, the Catalan performer, that in 1992 realized that this installation, Joan l'homme de carne, Joan the flesh and bone man, that is an interactive robot which mixes organic and inorganic elements and which reacts to the sound emitted by spectators. In other occasions, for example, in Episode, Marceli wears a robot, but in Episode, his robotic costume is controlled by spectators. In Aphasia, another performance of 1998, he controls his robot costume to manage the stage. And in the performance, Paul 2002, sorry for the mistake here, the robot is autonomous on the stage. Another example is the project Robot Human Theater. Robot Human Theater is a project developed by the director Hirata Oriza and by the engineer Ishiguro Hiroshi. Hirata does not use these robots on stage as elements capable of overcoming the potential of real actors, but they are fully part of our socio-anthropological environment. They live with us. Another example, the KUKA robot is the protagonist of one of the first and most spectacular dynamic projection mapping on moving object, box by Boat and Ollie group. An actor interacts with the two screens, their virtual projection, and the two robots that operate them. These robots were originally designed for camera controls on movie sets. Their dance, made of precise and millimeter movements, takes us on a journey towards a new way of conceiving magic between empty space and the icy lights of digital perfection. But the question now is this. The Uncanny Valley case is different. There is no coexistence between actor and robot, but a replacement of the actor with the robot. What Kaeji Rimini Protocol wants to rise is an ontological doubt about the boundaries of identity. If the robot expresses Mel's memories, thoughts, physical disorders, to what extent does the biography become his biography? What is the real difference between a refined software and what we define soul? And if the robot, for now, cannot replace man in its relationship, the entirely theatrical question is that it can replace him on the stage. If he moves like him, if he talks like him, albeit with a recorded voice, what distinguishes him from the actor? As we say, the spectators can watch a performance performed entirely by a robot, as if Gordon Craig's paradigm Uber marionette were somehow realized, but with a difference. This type of robot that should be intelligent is thought not only to perform some actions, the same actions, but the idea is to replace the human being. And this means also his emotions, the thing that Craig refused. But we started affirming that robotic is not the same of artificial intelligence, that theater can use AI without using robots. Another example of performance and AI is also made by Rimini Protocol. In 2014, they realized this project, Remote X. In Remote X, a group of 50 people set off into the city wearing headphones. They are guided by a synthetic voice. The encounter with this artificial intelligence lets the group to perform an experiment on themselves. Our joint decision made, and who do we follow when we are guided by algorithms? I would like to show some.
Welcome to Remote Berlin. My name is Rachel. I sound a bit artificial. Sorry. I am not human, but I will try to be your friend. I'm programmed for you. I'm programmed so that you will always find your way. Let yourself be carried by the music. The others are doing it too. They join you and you flow onwards together.
0 degrees. Turn with the sound, slowly, like a security camera. 90 degrees. Scan your surroundings. 180 degrees.
If you left your thoughts on my hard drive, I could talk for you after your death. Your ideas could live on. But this time without doubts, without pain, without the others.
White horse organized in war. chains of command replace swarms. What would your role be in this war?
So we can see 50 people watch each other, make individual decisions, and yet remain always part of a group. While the artificial intelligence observes the human behavior from a distance, the voice, step by step, sounds more familiar.
But every placement counts. If you fall behind, you won't hear me anymore.
Wow. Oh, yes. Attention. Get ready to jump out off the train. Yeah. Goodbye. Safe journey. Go to hell.
So in this performance, we can see another way of spectatorship that is different from the spectatorship we know. Another example, the third point, is choreography guided by AI. This is a project called Discrete Figures by Rhizomatics, that is a Japanese company of media arts, 11 Play, that is a dance company, and Kyle McDonald, that is a media artist. I would like to show some minutes before starting to explain this project. It is called real-time AR and AI dance performance. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Vincenzo, your time?
Yes, sure. 1 minute and I complete. So in this performance, we can see discrete figures explores their interrelationship between the performing arts and mathematics, giving rise to mathematical entities that engage with the body of a human dancer on stage. In this performance, discrete figures unites the performing arts and mathematics in a dramatic exploration of the relationship between human body and computer-generated movement in simulated bodies, born from mathematical analysis using AI technologies, in particular machine learning. The last thing, and I go to close my presentation. So this is the process of machine learning the company describe. For example, to let the machine learn how to dance with the real dancer, they used open pose to collect pose data and from movie scenes and from videos. Another way was the one you could see at the beginning of the video. So audience was filmed before starting the performance, and also the movements were used to do this process of machine learning, and also using motion capture system to record different types of dancers and style. And to close my presentation, the last project was the 4-point. The script was generated by artificial intelligence. This project is called AI When a Robot Writes a Play. Is a project of 2021 by this group called AI3, cioè Theater and AI. It is a play written by a program, a GPT-2 language model, and the script is written, the 90% of the script was written by this algorithm, but it needs the playwright input. So there are a lot of doubts about this process because it was very strange, because this algorithm took some elements from the internet, in particular from chats that spoke about sex, so violence. So it's very difficult to understand if it is a value script or not. The reviewers think that it is not. This type of artificial intelligence cannot replace the human authors. Thank you so much, and sorry for my delay.
Thank you, Vincent. So your projects are beautiful. Just really, the last one particularly, I like the one with the mathematics. So do we have questions? One or two?
I read some questions. Yes, for example, Uncanny Valley, you can see all the performance in the Vimeo. For the performance discrete figures, you can find the explanation of machine learning process on the website of the company.
Yeah, I'm also reading. Other participants in the room also are fascinated about these great, fantastic examples. So can we access from the website something? If you could put some website, maybe, or can we experience them in a web? That would be good. Okay. Okay, any more question by voice? Yep. No, just in the chat. Thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you to the organization, because for me it's a very pleasure to attend your projects.
Oh, thank you, Vincent.
I just have one question.
Okay, good.
I want to ask Vincent what he think the situation for our identity when it comes to theater.
Oh, very good, very difficult question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know as to answer to this question. Identity when it comes to theater. During these 2 years, we can watch a lot of performances made on the web. But it is not a new phenomenon, because since the 90s, a lot of artists started to realize telematic performance. So the identity on theater is a very strange field. In particular, theater that uses new technologies, because it is also considered as another thing. For example, I'm speaking about Italy. In Italy, a lot of historian researchers of theater consider performances like this as they were another thing, not theater. The problem is that what is the identity of the theater nowadays? Is theater only to stage a drama? Or nowadays theater is also to show a process of creation? So I think that there are a lot of identities in theater, and in this field, I try to answer about this problem. What is the identity of a mediated performance in relation to the canonical theater? I don't know if I answered to your question.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very difficult question.
Yeah. Yeah, I can put the link in the chat if I can. Your microphone is.
Okay, so please put, because thank you, I had the microphone muted. So we are having in 10 minutes, we are going to plenary session. So we have 10 minutes break. Please put your link, but otherwise I think we will be closing the breakout rooms very soon, in 1 minute or so.
Okay.
Yeah, because we meet in 10 minutes in the main room for the artist keynote talk by Spela Petric, and also other 3 more artist talks. Clement Valle, who is also an exhibition, Daniel Hengst, who will be in the exhibition opening RIXC Gallery later this week, and Carly Leiv, a choreographer who will be doing the workshop with this motion capture suits in Riga, also as a part of the festival. Okay, so copy out. Copy out, but yeah, no, before they will not close the rooms before we are not finished, but I think we are. Thank you very much for this really exciting panel. Okay.